There's a truth no one wants to admit. Power isn't always given to the smartest, the loudest, or even the most talented. It's taken by those who understand how to think several moves ahead while everyone else is playing checkers. The world is a game of strategy. Every room you walk into is full of people trying to get ahead, be seen, be heard, be chosen. But here's the thing, most people reveal too much, too soon. They speak before thinking. They react instead of observing. They confuse emotion for intelligence, and they get played over and over again. But not you. Not after today. Today, you're going to learn how to outsmart anyone, not through manipulation or deceit, but through clarity, precision, and total self-mastery. Because dominance isn't about raising your voice or showing off. It's about knowing who holds the real power and making sure that person is you. I'm going to give you 5 unshakable rules, not tips, not tricks, rules that high-level operatives, elite interrogators, and top-tier leaders live by. These are the kind of principles that keep you in control, even when everything around you is chaos. You don't need to be louder. You need to be smarter. You don't need to win every fight. You need to win the war without ever being seen as the enemy. So if you're tired of being underestimated, overlooked, or overrun by people who don't deserve your time, stay locked in. Because once you master these rules, you won't just survive in this world. You'll own it. People often say, don't judge a book by its cover. But the truth is, we all do it. Instantly. Automatically. Without even realizing it. Within the first few seconds of meeting someone, we subconsciously decide whether we trust them, fear them, respect them, or dismiss them entirely. That decision, fair or not, can shape the entire direction of a relationship, a negotiation, a confrontation, or a career. This is why the first rule to outsmarting anyone is learning how to master perception. Because the person who controls how they are perceived controls the narrative. When you walk into a room, you're not just entering a space, you're being read like a file. People are scanning you for signs. Are you confident or insecure? Do you carry authority or desperation? Can you be manipulated? Can you be challenged? You may think you're just existing, but you're broadcasting. And once someone labels you, that label becomes your invisible uniform. If you're not intentional about what you're broadcasting, someone else will define it for you. And once they define you, they will treat you accordingly. That's the beginning of being outplayed. So what's the solution? Emotional control. Discipline, self-awareness. Mastering perception begins by understanding that every gesture, every pause, every word you speak or don't speak is being processed through a psychological filter. Your goal isn't to fake anything. It's to project only what strengthens your position and conceal what weakens it. Let's start with one of the most overlooked tools of dominance, silence. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it. They overshare, overexplain, or overcompensate. But silence, intentional silence, is power. The ability to sit in a pause without shrinking speaks volumes. When someone asks you a difficult question and you take a slow, deliberate breath before answering, you convey control. When others get emotional and you remain still, you create uncertainty in their minds about what you're really thinking, and that uncertainty becomes leverage. Now pair silence with body language. Your body is speaking even when your mouth is shut. People can read hesitation, insecurity, or doubt in your shoulders, your posture, your facial expressions. So what do? You train your body to tell a different story. Shoulders back, spine tall, chin level. When you speak, your eyes should meet theirs, not stare them down, but hold steady, blink less, move slower. People who rush appear frantic. People who fidget seem unsure. But people who move with calm, deliberate intention, they are seen as competent, powerful, and most importantly, unshakable. This extends to your tone of voice. Volume doesn't equal strength. It's not about shouting or raising your voice. That's what insecure people do when they want to appear strong. True strength lives in tone, in pacing, in rhythm. When you speak with a calm but firm voice, people lean in. When you pause for effect, you force them to sit with your words. You own the room not by dominating it loudly, but by compelling it quietly. But mastering perception goes beyond how you present yourself. It's also about reading the room. Outsmarting anyone means becoming a student of people. Observe more than you speak. Study the dynamic before you act. Who holds influence here? Who wants attention? Who's threatened by your presence? When you know the landscape, you know how to move within it without setting off alarms. You learn when to speak, when to listen, and when to strategically disappear, because vanishing at the right moment can say more than 1,000 words. Another key component of perception control is restraint. People who cannot control themselves cannot control outcomes. If someone insults you and you react emotionally, you give them control. If someone pressures you and you panic, you reveal your weakness. But if you can stay calm, composed, and unfazed, even when someone is trying to provoke you, you show that your emotional foundation is unshakable. That's terrifying to people who thrive on power plays. When they can't read you, they can't predict you. When they can't predict you, they lose their advantage. This also means not giving people more information than they need. One of the biggest mistakes people make is over-explaining. They feel the need to justify themselves. But people who are confident in their position don't do that. They say what they mean, and then they stop talking. The more you say, the more people have to work with. The less you say, the more they wonder. And curiosity is a weapon. Leave room for mystery. Let people fill in the gaps with their own assumptions, and most of the time, they'll assume strength. Remember, perception is not about pretending. It's about being deliberate. It's about learning to manage how people experience you so you can stay in control of how situations unfold. You want to become the kind of person others watch closely, listen to carefully, and think twice before challenging. Not because you're loud or aggressive, but because your presence speaks for itself. When you master how people perceive you, you move through the world like a chess master, not reacting to every move, but already planning 5 steps ahead. You walk into rooms not hoping to be accepted, but knowing how to direct the flow of energy. You don't beg for respect, you command it silently, strategically, and with complete composure. That's how you begin to outsmart anyone, by never letting them know exactly what you're thinking, but always making them believe you're thinking one step ahead. Words are your greatest weapon. They can build bridges or burn them to the ground. They can make people follow you blindly or question everything you stand for. If you want to outsmart anyone, you must learn to speak the language of power and influence, not just to be heard, but to be obeyed, not to impress, but to direct. Power doesn't come from speaking more, it comes from speaking with impact. And influence doesn't require shouting. It requires strategy. When you open your mouth, people are not just listening to your words. They're evaluating your certainty. They're measuring your confidence. They're watching for cracks. Power is not about what you say, it's about how you say it. The most dominant people in any room are not always the loudest. In fact, they're usually the ones who speak the least. But when they do, everyone listens. Why? Because their words carry weight. They don't waste breath. They don't dilute their authority with fillers or nervous chatter. They speak with intention, and that's why they command respect. Start by eliminating weak language from your vocabulary. Words like just, I think, maybe, and sorry when you're not at fault. They sabotage your credibility. They make you sound unsure. Uncertainty is contagious. If you sound like you're questioning yourself, other people will too. Power language is concise and direct. Say what you mean, clearly and calmly. Don't wrap truth in disclaimers. Don't cushion every statement with apologies. You're not asking for permission to speak. You're speaking because your words matter. Next, learn how to ask questions that put you in control. The person who asks the right questions, not the one who gives all the answers, controls the conversation. Questions can shift energy. They can redirect attention. They can dismantle someone's argument without ever raising your voice. When you ask someone, "Help me understand why you made that decision," you're not attacking them, but you're forcing them to justify themselves. That's influence. That's control. There's also tremendous power in the pause. When you make a bold statement, don't rush to fill the silence. Let it land. Let people sit with your words. That stillness that follows. That's where influence lives. That's where your message takes root. People who fill every space with noise are often trying to hide their anxiety. But when you leave space after you speak, it signals confidence. It shows that you don't need to push your words. You trust them to carry their own weight. Your tone also tells the world what to believe. Power doesn't scream. It doesn't whine. It doesn't speed up in fear. Power speaks slowly, clearly, and with finality. When you control your tone, you control the emotional temperature of the room. If someone is angry and you respond with calm, firm speech, you don't just avoid escalation. You demonstrate that their chaos doesn't shake you. That's dominance without aggression. That's how real influence works. Another tactic is mastering leading language. If you want people to agree with you, guide them to say yes in small steps. This is called a yes ladder. You ask questions that are easy to agree with, creating a pattern of mental agreement. Once their brain is used to saying yes, it's much easier to secure a bigger commitment. For example, if you want someone to accept a change, you don't start by forcing the new idea. You start by asking if they care about improvement, if they want better results, if they believe progress is necessary. Get those yeses, and then introduce your plan. They're already on the ladder. You just moved them up one more rung. Equally important is learning how to deflect challenges without becoming defensive. When someone tries to put you on the spot, stay cool. Acknowledge their concern without surrendering your position. Phrases like "That's an interesting point. Let me offer another angle," or "I see why you'd ask that. Here's what I can tell you." Shift the energy from confrontation to conversation. The goal isn't to win a shouting match. It's to steer the direction of thought. It's to keep control of the narrative without ever letting them know they lost the wheel. Also, never forget that true influence happens when people feel seen and understood. You don't have to agree with someone to validate their feeling. Sometimes the most powerful sentence you can say is, "I hear you." When people feel heard, they soften, they stop resisting. And when they stop resisting, they become more open to being led. Influence is not manipulation. It's connection with direction. It's speaking to both the mind and the emotion behind it. And finally, understand this. The language of power isn't about dominating people. It's about being undeniable. You don't have to overpower anyone when your words carry truth, precision, and confidence. Learn to read the energy of a room, speak only when it adds value, and carry yourself like someone who knows their words are worth listening to. Every time you speak, you're either gaining influence or losing it. Make your voice a tool, not a weapon. Make your words count. Use them not to impress, but to lead. Because when you master the language of power, you no longer have to chase influence. You become it. To outsmart anyone, you need to stop focusing on proving yourself and start focusing on studying others. People will show you exactly who they are. If you know how to read the signs, every word they say, every gesture they make, every silence they hold or break, it all tells a story. Outsmarting isn't about having all the answers. It's about understanding the motives, fears, desires, and patterns that drive the people around you. Once you understand someone better than they understand themselves, they stop being unpredictable. You'll know what they're going to say before they say it. You'll know what they want before they admit it. That's power. Most people go through life reacting to behavior without ever trying to understand the root of it. But behavior is just the surface. If someone gets defensive, don't just respond to their tone. Ask yourself why they feel threatened. If someone keeps talking about their achievements, don't just roll your eyes. Recognize the insecurity behind the bragging. The moment you start seeing behavior as a symptom, not the problem, you gain an edge. You stop taking things personally, you stop being manipulated, and you start playing at a level most people don't even see. Emotional intelligence is not about being nice. It's about being aware. It's being able to pick up on the subtleties that other people miss. Pay attention to how someone reacts under pressure. That's when their mask slips. Watch what topics make them nervous, which people make them shrink, which situations make them defensive or controlling. This is where their internal wiring is exposed. And if you study it, you'll start seeing pattern. You'll start understanding what they're really afraid of, what they're craving, what they're trying to protect. That understanding gives you influence not by force but through precision. Listening is one of the most underestimated skills in power dynamics. People love to talk. They reveal everything when they feel like someone is actually paying attention. Don't just hear words, listen for contradictions, emotional spikes, moments of hesitation. Ask open-ended questions and then stay quiet. Let silence pull the truth out. The more people speak, the more they give away. And when you listen long enough, they'll tell you exactly how to win them over or take them down. There's also something powerful in decoding nonverbal communication. The way someone sits, the way they glance around the room, the micro expressions they try to hide, these are all access points into their inner world. Someone might be smiling, but if their eyes are scanning or their body is angled away from you, they're disengaged. Someone might say they're confident, but if they can't hold your gaze or they're constantly adjusting their clothes, their body is betraying the truth. And once you learn to read this language, you can see what's real and what's performance. Understanding people at this level also gives you the ability to predict behavior. Once you identify someone's emotional blueprint, you can anticipate how they'll respond in certain situations. A person driven by approval will fold under rejection. A person fueled by ego will lash out when challenged. A person who's been abandoned will cling when threatened. If you can identify what a person's core driver is, whether it's fear, pride, guilt, or validation, you can navigate around them or through them with surgical accuracy. But this level of understanding doesn't just help you defend against people, it helps you lead them. Influence becomes effortless when you speak to people's core needs. When you recognize someone's fear and speak to their need for safety, they will listen. When you identify their insecurity and speak to their desire for significance, they will follow. When you can articulate their struggle better than they can, they will trust you. People are drawn to those who understand them. Use that to build loyalty, alignment, and respect. This skill also allows you to stay emotionally untouchable. When someone attacks or challenges you, you don't spiral. You assess. You ask, what's really going on here? What's driving this reaction? And with that question, you put space between you and their chaos. You take back control. Most people operate from a place of emotional reactivity. You're going to operate from clarity. You're not reacting. You're diagnosing. You're not attacking. You're analyzing. Understand this. People want to feel understood more than they want to be right. If you give them that experience, they'll drop their guard. They'll follow your lead. They'll listen when others can't get through. And when you can see through someone's mask, when you can speak directly to their truth, you gain the kind of influence that can't be faked. You become someone who sees what others miss. And that's when people start fearing, respecting, or depending on you. So don't waste your energy trying to prove how smart you are. Study people, watch them, listen deeply. Learn what drives them, what shapes them, what scares them, what leads them. Because when you understand someone better than they understand themselves, you don't have to force your way in. They open the door and hand you the keys. The people who win in life aren't always the ones who play by the rules. They're the ones who understand the rules better than anyone else, and then know exactly when to follow them, bend them, or break them without getting caught. If you want to outsmart anyone, you need to stop being a passive participant and start becoming a strategic operator. This world runs on visible and invisible systems. Most people only see the surface, the official policies, the spoken expectations, the obvious procedures. But those who truly dominate the game know that what's written down and what actually runs the show are often two very different things. Every environment has a structure. Social circles, workplaces, families, organizations, they all have power dynamics. There's a chain of command, yes, but more importantly, there are unspoken alliances, reputational leverage, ego battles, and subtle currents of influence that move things behind the scenes. If you only operate based on what you're told, you'll always be 2 steps behind. Outsmarting others starts by understanding not just what the rules are, but who enforces them, who benefits from them, who ignores them, and where the loopholes live. The first step is observation. Before you make any bold moves, you need to study the field. Who really holds the influence here? It's not always the boss or the loudest person. Sometimes it's the quiet one people ask for input before they act. Sometimes it's the one with insider relationships, or the one who knows how to play both sides. You can't control the game until you understand the players. So before you speak, before you push, watch everything. Watch how decisions get made. Watch who gets away with what. Watch who stays quiet when they could speak, and why. Once you understand the real flow of power, you can start positioning yourself. That doesn't mean being fake. It means being strategic. You don't fight every battle. You don't speak up just to prove you're smart. You conserve energy. You collect information. And when you make a move, you do it with precision. Smart operators don't waste time trying to impress everyone. They know exactly who to align with, exactly when to disappear, and exactly when to show up and change the direction of the room. Knowing the rules also means knowing how to bend them in your favor. Some rules are there to keep order. Others are there to keep people small. If a rule keeps you from growing, from speaking truth, or from seizing opportunity, you must have the courage to challenge it. But do it wisely. Don't attack head-on unless you want a war. Instead, use subtlety. Influence those who influence others. Ask questions that make people rethink the status quo. Create doubt before you demand change. If you want to break a rule and not suffer the fallout, make sure it looks like progress, not rebellion. Sometimes the most powerful move is to play dumb while gathering intel. Let others underestimate you. Let them think you're not a threat. That gives you room to maneuver. People let their guard down when they think you're not paying attention. But you are. You're watching everything. And when the time is right, you'll make the kind of move no one saw coming. Because they weren't looking at you like a contender. That's how you get ahead, by moving under the radar until it's time to strike. And don't forget, when you're playing the game, unpredictability is an asset. The moment people can predict your behavior, they start planning around it. But when you're calculated yet unpredictable, you keep everyone on edge. You're not reckless, you're intentional. You're not emotional. You're strategic. One moment you play by the book, next you flip the script. That inconsistency creates power because people don't know how to handle it. They hesitate, and hesitation is where you take the lead. Well, with all this, there's one crucial discipline you must never lose: control. If you're going to bend or break the rules, you must be able to handle the consequences. That means always thinking 3 steps ahead. Don't break a rule impulsively. Break it because you've already mapped out the outcome. You've already identified the risks, and you've decided it's worth it. That kind of control is what separates manipulators from masters. You're not out here to cause chaos. You're out here to win with precision. Also remember, reputation is a form of currency in this game. Protect yours, even while you're operating in shadows. Don't make enemies unnecessarily. Don't burn bridges just to make a point. Make power moves that build your credibility, even when they challenge norms. You want to be seen as someone who gets things done, who knows the system, who can be trusted even if you're playing a level above everyone else. When people respect you, they give you room. When they fear you, they move cautiously. When they admire you, they support you, even if they don't understand how you're doing it. At the end of the day, control doesn't come from blindly following the rules or ruthlessly destroying them. It comes from understanding them better than anyone else and choosing your battles with discipline, timing, and purpose. Outsmarting people isn't about ego or dominance. It's about foresight. It's about knowing how to move in a system while slowly rewriting it from the inside. Because the smartest players aren't the ones screaming at the table. They're the ones building their own behind closed doors. If you want to outsmart anyone consistently, powerfully, and without burning out, you must become unshakable from within. You can master strategy. You can read people like books. You can command a room with your presence, but none of that will last if you don't have control over your own mind, emotions, and reactions. This is where real power is born, not in being louder, not in being more aggressive, but in becoming internally fortified, untouchable, because the moment you allow the outside world to dictate your internal state, you've already lost the game. People who win long-term are not ruled by how they feel. They are guided by principle, by discipline, and by clarity. They don't lash out when they're angry. They don't fold when they're afraid. They don't chase approval or flinch under pressure, and that's not because they're emotionless. It's because they've built an inner fortress that doesn't collapse when challenged. They've trained themselves to respond, not react. And in a world full of impulsive people, the calm one has the upper hand. Emotional control is not a luxury. It's a requirement for dominance. Anyone can be confident when things are going well. But your strength is tested in moments of tension, criticism, disrespect, rejection, and chaos. The one who stays composed while others unravel is the one who wins, not just the moment, but the influence. When people see that you're not easily rattled, they instinctively respect you. They may not say it out loud, but they register it. Your calm becomes your leverage. Your stability becomes your signal that you're not someone to play with. That level of calm comes from discipline, not denial. You don't suppress your emotions, you process them with control. You feel fear, but you don't let it paralyze you. You feel anger, but you don't let it explode in ways that cost you power. You recognize your emotional state. You observe it like a scientist, and you choose the response that protects your position and advances your purpose. That's how high-level people operate. They feel, but they don't fall apart. They bleed, but they don't show weakness. They struggle, but they keep moving forward with clarity. To build that inner fortress, you must start by strengthening your mindset. That means developing core beliefs that cannot be shaken by external events. Beliefs like I am capable no matter what others think. I am in control of my time, my energy, and my words. I will not give power to people who haven't earned the right to influence me. You repeat these truths until they become part of your internal programming. Because in moments of stress, your mind will default to whatever belief is strongest. If you haven't built powerful defaults, you'll fall back into fear, insecurity, or reactivity. But if you've fortified your beliefs, you'll stay grounded, even in the storm. You also need rituals that reinforce your strength. Mental toughness isn't built in the middle of a crisis. It's built in the quiet moments when no one is watching. Wake up early, train your body, feed your mind, sit in silence, write your thoughts, reflect on your values. These habits don't just make you more disciplined, they anchor you. They remind you of who you are and what you're about. When the world tries to pull you into chaos, you return to these routines. You don't chase the noise. You stand in your rhythm. That's how you hold your ground when others are crumbling. Another critical piece of inner strength is learning how to sit with discomfort. Most people try to escape it. They numb it, avoid it, or distract themselves. But discomfort is not your enemy. It's your trainer. When you can sit with discomfort, emotional pain, mental pressure, uncertainty, you start developing endurance. You stop flinching every time something doesn't go your way. You stop expecting everything to feel easy. You stop confusing difficulty with failure. And suddenly, what used to break you becomes your fuel. You outlast others, not because you're invincible, but because you've become resilient. And resilience isn't loud, it's quiet. It's in the way you keep showing up, day after day. Even when no one's cheering, it's in the way you handle betrayal, disappointment, loss, without losing your identity or your standards. That kind of strength terrifies weak people because they realize they can't manipulate you. They can't guilt trip you. and they can't control you with fear or pressure. You've built something inside that they can't touch. Don't mistake softness for strength. The world may praise vulnerability, but make no mistake, if you want to lead, if you want to dominate, if you want to stay 3 steps ahead, you better build steel into your spine. Yes, have compassion. Yes, stay human, but never let that humanity be used against you. Your emotions are yours. Your peace is yours. Guard them like territory, because once you let someone inside that fortress without discernment, they can sabotage you from within. So build it brick by brick. Your mindset, your habits, your emotional mastery, your clarity. That's your fortress. Let people wonder why nothing shakes you. Let them whisper about how you're always calm, always centered, always one move ahead. Let them think it's natural. They don't need to know the war you fought behind the scenes to build it. They just need to know you are untouchable. Let me leave you with this. Outsmarting anyone isn't about playing games. It's about mastering yourself so completely that no one can play games with you. This world is full of noise, full of performers, full of people pretending to be powerful while barely holding it together inside. But you're not built for show. You're built for impact. You're not here to impress people. You're here to move differently, think sharper, and live with intention. The 5 rules you've learned today are more than strategies. They are a mindset. Control how the world perceives you. Speak the language that shifts rooms. Read people so clearly that their masks mean nothing. Understand the system so deeply that you can break the rules without breaking yourself. And above all, build an inner world so fortified, so focused, that no outside storm can shake your foundation. That's power. Real power. Quiet, deliberate, relentless. So the next time someone underestimates you, stay calm. The next time someone tests you, stay sharp. And when the world pushes, don't push back. Outmaneuver it. Because the most dangerous person in any room is the one who needs nothing, shows nothing, but sees everything. And from this moment forward, that's who you are.